Good morning. Welcome and welcome back. It's Judy from Thistledew Creations. I try to be ready for Happy Mail at all times to send it. And so yesterday for my arm's length crafting session, I just grabbed some junk mail envelopes and did some collaging on them. I was inspired by a video that I watched last week. I can't remember who it was now, but if I can think of it, I will list it in the comments, where she wrapped the back side of the envelope and wrapped it around onto the front. And then she didn't do this, but I decided to do it both ways. So a little bit of the front wraps onto the back as well. And so I did it a few different ways. This was a window envelope that I cut to, I think it's around six and 3/4 almost. And then I did that wrap around to the front idea, but underneath the coffee dyed paper, I put some book page, and then I pieced it in above and below the window. And then the music that is on the front wraps onto the back as well. It really firms up the envelope a lot. Now this one I haven't cut a notch or anything. I do have a whale tail punch that I sometimes use to cut my notches if I can get it in. And it just depends on how much space there is in the envelope. It's harder to get them even, but you can just do that at the front, at the top. And then I didn't do much inking on this either, so I'll do that. And that just accentuates that notch, makes it more noticeable. I like to do down the edges. I would normally do these edges too, but I didn't. I was just collaging and having fun. So you can go back and just kind of rub along the edge like that. Darken it a little bit. And that's just vintage photo archival ink that I'm using. I did remember to do this edge. I didn't remember to do this one. I was really tired and I just wanted to play. I didn't want to film. I knew that future me would forgive me for not inking anyway. So that's a nice little pocket. Now when I do make a tag to go inside this, I'll make sure that whatever I put in this area that's poking through is interesting and that it coordinates with however I decorate the outside. So sometimes I sit down and just do all beige, like just neutrals, nothing on top. This one is a pharmacy bag, so it's white, but I can just ink sort of what you see when it's closed. I don't usually go in and ink in here. And this is perfect for sending just a few little bits of ephemera. And I had left this white, but I intended to come back and ink it. And that shape that's on the top edge of this is my white tear ruler that I got from Temu. It's got quite a calm ripple strip, and then it's got quite a aggressive one, and I like using both in different ways. This aggressive one is great if you can't get the page to tear nicely for you like it is here, then you can use that and get a really interesting tear. If I can think, I will link that as well. If you are interested in it and it isn't linked, just give me a little nudge and I will link it for you. Sometimes I forget what I said I would do. I think a lot of us YouTubers do. We have good intentions, so just give us a nudge. You wouldn't believe how much that part of the YouTubing, how much time it takes to go back and remember to ink or link all the things you said you were going to and blah, blah, blah. So there I also just used my zigzag scissors for a different texture. So this is music paper knee deep in daisy, so I feel like this one needs like a daisy picture on the front, so I think I'll work on getting that embellished that way. This one, I took the envelope that was already cut open at the top, and I cut with the zigzag scissors at the top, and then I folded the envelope up and left it closed but cut a notch. I think that's right, yeah. So there's a notch there, but this is closed. So you can't really stick anything in, but it creates a pocket on the front of the envelope. So you got 2 places, 3, depending on how you glue it down. It does have a nice back, so it would be a good one to just clip in or put into another pocket. So I did 3 of those, well, 2 envelopes, 1 bag. And then this is the offcut. I believe it was from this one. And so I cut that one down. So this was the piece that was left over. So it becomes a little pocket. And again, I used my whale tail tab to do the punch, to do the swoop. I did decorate this one with a little doily, a little picture out of a seed catalog, and a stamp. I find 3 things is often enough if you're wanting to keep it just flat. I could go in with buttons and sequins and stuff, but then it gets thick for Happy Mail. So that's great in a journal, but if you send them like this in Happy Mail, then the person who's getting it can add those things themselves and use it in their journal. And I didn't decorate the back of that one. It was an Ontario Health Cancer Care, probably something telling me to get a mammogram. And then another little same sort of thing. I just decoupaged on the front and wrapped some things around. I didn't really finish it. I could go back and finish those. Maybe we'll do that today. But just basically this is not finished and this one's closer to being finished. So again, you can get that punch in there. And if you have a small circle punch, you can use that too, any size. I've seen people do quite small notches and they look good too. I like more of a swoop than a half circle. So just the edge of a circle is what I prefer. And that's why I like the whale tail tab punch. So I'm just gonna go ahead and ink this while I'm touching it. I always think that finishes things off, but I might go back and do some more on that one today. We'll see. Then I had some larger envelopes that documents came in, and they were open so that they had no flap left. So I basically made my own flap for them. So that was onto the front of the page and then wrapped around and then folded back on itself so that it's sturdy. So that's just copy paper, but it's double thickness. And it was some coffee dyed paper that I had that had writing on one side. You can just barely see it there through. It was turquoise marker. I always use colored markers at work. So you can see some of that coming through, and it was a countertop sketch for when you order a countertop. But so you can see some of those lines too, but that's fine. You can go back on that and stamp on it. I usually write my return address back here, so I didn't do anything yet. But I did collage both sides of this one. So this one will be what I send some Happy Mail in. And I will try to have, again, the person's address coming through here. So that'll be, just take a little extra planning for a swap or some special Happy Mail, and where it's a little bit more Happy Mail. And then I did another one of those, but I added some color on the front. I've got several of these. It was from some brochures that it was an art studio tour in our area, and where the store where I work had a big stack of the brochures for it. So once the studio tour was over, the next day I took the stack of them and I cut out all the little pieces of art to use this way. I wouldn't sell anything that I use that for, because I think that's not fair to the artist, but I will give them. So that is how I use that piece. And just a bit of color. I will probably go back and put more purple and blue things, you know, as a collage cluster sort of idea. I was just wanting to accomplish a few things without bringing everything out. So I was working with my stack of neutral papers. And then this one is another envelope, junk mail envelope or bank envelope, where I did that same technique where I wrapped the backing around to the front and the front around to the back. A little bit less on the front around to the back. And I did use that tear ruler again. This one was a natural tear. Sometimes I can get a good natural tear with copy paper, and sometimes it just wants to tear straight, which is not fun for me. And then I did, I glued it shut, and then I just very roughly, it was still wet. Like all the glue was still damp. So I just put down my ruler and tore, and it gave me this really rough edge. And initially I was disappointed and wanted to fix it, and then I thought, no, you know why? Because that is going to take ink so well. And so I saved it to show you how when you get a really rough edge, if you've been a scrapbooker or a card maker, you might really be disappointed with yourself. But you don't have to be. If you're embracing the junk journaling genre, you can embrace that, ink it up, and it looks so intentional and so yummy if you like that aesthetic. I do. I've always liked, like I'm a kitchen designer, and you know, of course, sometimes we always have to be precise with our dimensions. And so precision has always been something I strive for, but I've always liked the finishes that were painted and distressed and not inked, but glazed. So it has like an inked look to it. And so that's why I didn't mind when I did that. I thought that's going to be a really good example of how to embrace the imperfections, because I really like the way that looks once it's inked up. And it's very uneven at the top there. You can see, put it up against something white. You can really see that rough edge, and I just want to leave it that way. And then you can go in and do something to just juxtapose that. You could put a grommet there or an eyelet. I always want to call them grommets. So let's start with, let's do a couple of some decorations on these. I feel like playing today, but I just don't know what I want to make, so I'll just start with this. So if you haven't seen it, my crocodile is one from Temu. I do like it. People always wonder if the stuff from Temu is any good, and I would say resoundingly yes, it's awesome. It has two sizes of punches in the sides here. I don't know if you can see that when I squeeze, they pop out. You can see this one's skinny and this one's fatter over here. I tend to use the fat one. And it has a depth gauge, so you can decide how deep into the piece you want it to punch. I'm going to go in a ways and punch. And then you put your grommet or your eyelet through. When they're large rings, they're called grommets. When they're small rings for paper crafting, they're called eyelets. But I knew the word grommet first, so it's the one that always wants to come out of my mouth for some reason. And then you use the center part to squeeze that down, and it squeezes really easy. You don't have to hold it like that either. I was just looking to see where my scraps fell there. So that is just an approximation of center, not perfect either. But then you can take some twine, and it would probably do some sort of rough twine. Just depends how I decorate it. But it's a nice thin tag, but it does have like 2 thicknesses of paper from the envelope, and then 2 thicknesses of paper from what you put on top, and then plus then whatever embellishments you do. Okay, so I think the only thing I was thinking on this one was maybe some stamping on here and some color. So I think what I'll do is start with this one because it already has some color. And I just put some purple flowers in here. So I could definitely add 1 or 2 of those. Now that's a gray one. I know there was purple in here too. And these are just slightly embossed, so they have a bit of a thickness to them. Borderline whether you should put it on the outside of an envelope that's going in the mail. But I am going to glue them down really well with 3-in-1 and hope for the best. I'm just going to pull out my flowers box, and I have this other box that I decorated. It was a really old glove box, like that they would store their gloves in, and it was really in rough shape. So I took some handmade paper that was out of I guess an address book or something like that I got at the thrift store, and I cut it all into rectangles and just glued it all over, and I didn't put any Mod Podge or glue on the surface, so you can really feel the paper. It's a lovely little box. You can see on the bottom how I wrapped it around. Very old vintage box, but it just wasn't pretty anymore, and I might go back and redo that some other time. But what I tend to keep, like with more different papers, what I tend to keep in here is like at the end of a session when I've got a whole bunch of stuff spread out all over my desk and I don't feel like sorting it and putting it back in each little drawer that I have for it, then I put it in this box. And little random things that I come across, and at the time I put this away, I didn't feel like finding my tea bag stuff, so I just put it in here. These were some Judy's that I had glued a printable to it just with glue stick, and when I went to use it, it came off, so I just kept the backing in here. Those would be fun to stamp on, so I might do that someday. But I tend to use these things that are in here. They're kind of just a random mishmash of all sorts of things. So I tend to use those when I'm sending out Happy Mail, to just use them up that way. So here's a little one with some lavender and a postage stamp, cancellation stamp. So that will work well with that. And I'll just cover, well, I don't really want to cover that bottom rough edge. I did that on purpose to show off, but I can put this anywhere to kind of pretty up the front of the package. That's a sunflower that needs ink. And then I also have a bunch of these vellum stickers in here that have words and definitions. I don't really care for these that much, so I'll often put them onto the Happy Mail. And this one looks like it might have a bit of a brownish purple look to it. Of course, I'm not going to put anything much up in this corner because that's where I'm going to put my postage stamps. And I don't put my return address up here, so I can decorate up here a little bit if I want. And I can decorate all down here because I know I'm going to have my address in here. I don't even know who this is going to yet, so there's a nice piece that I can add. It's some fabric where I stamped some feathers onto with blue ink, so I can use that sideways, maybe down here. And the idea of decorating the envelopes, it's certainly not a necessary thing. It's fun to get a pretty envelope in the mail. But what I like is sometimes when it gets to you, it's not in the greatest shape. So what I do is cut those little pretty elements off, and some of them end up in this box too. And then I can reuse them if the envelope itself isn't nice enough anymore to reuse. I'm not saying it wasn't when they sent it, but it could be that, you know, it's been mangled in the mail, or the way it got opened, something got ripped or torn. So that is subtle up there with the blue, and it repeats the blue from down here. I've got all sorts of things in here. And this, I think, came off of someone's envelope. Pretty sure I saved that off of an envelope. So that would also be some stuff that I could layer here with these. These are stickers. And they weren't stuck down great, so they can be restuck with some actual glue. And I will even use that little piece of vine and leaf. I mean, I could just use the whole piece of brown paper, but you can see that these aren't stuck very well. And I should be using my tweezers. This is going to ruin my pretty sparkly nail polish. But I do like to use the 3-in-1 or a fair bit of tacky glue to glue stuff like this down, because the mail is pretty tough on these things. I might as well use all these up because they go together. Of course, it wants to stick to my fingernail, but not to the paper. My glue bottle is just a touch stringy. I'm going to have this going out this way. And this is kind of kinked. I could just cut that off rather than fight with it, because you really need this stuff to lay flat. Going through the machines at the post office will mangle it, and then it won't be pretty when it gets to its recipient. I've had some people give me quite negative comments when I show them the envelope that I'm sending them, saying like, oh, well, geez, I hope it makes it to me okay. I mean, maybe that was just me putting that tone in my head, but I thought, well, you know, I glued it down good, don't worry. And then that's just a bit different flower, different color purple. And then this one is kind of plasticky on the front. It must have been a plasticky sticker, but I'm going to try to ink it anyway. I think the archival usually sticks pretty well to even plastics because it's not water soluble. I just like things inked up. And then the other thing that I often do is take some glue stick when it's a little bit bigger piece and do the whole back. And that way, when you use your 3-in-1 or your tacky, if it doesn't get everywhere, it has the extra glue in between to hold it down. So that's a nice little cluster down in this corner. Little detail up here. My stamps will go here. So something could go down in here, and it could be just as simple as a couple of stickers that announce that it's Happy Mail. Here's a good example of something I tore off of an envelope that I received. So it's all been covered with packing tape, and it's just their little cluster. So I can reuse that little cluster. If the thing that's stopping me from using it, I think, is the plastic look to it. So I don't know, maybe I'll go over it with some stamping or something to dull it. But yeah, this box is just an assortment of all sorts of goodies. Now, I could use something like this. I tend to just use parts, but I could wrap this one onto the back too. But I'm more likely to just use part of it. Like this. And then this doesn't have any doily yet, so let's use a piece of doily with it. I think I have some half doilies here too that are close by. So I can do something like that. And then that over top. That would be cute. And I will wrap that around rather than try to cut it again. I've already cut it with my fancy scissors. So for these, I do a fairly good thick bit of glue stick. I'm still using my clear ones. I've got a bunch of purple ones waiting. And then I'll use the 3-in-1 right on the edge of the doily so that it doesn't try to lift up. And then some of these thicker spots where the glue can actually work. And then just a squiggle through the middle, a middle squiggle. And I don't mind if that overlaps our little lavender bit there. And then I'll just do the same thing on the back, just a stripe back and forth a couple of times so there's a bit of build up there. And then just on the solid parts. And then wrap that around. I like a good wrap around. And then this piece is only going to be able to be, well, I could probably do the same trick, but it's hard to use the glue stick over top of the doily. It tends to tear it up. So I'm just going to do 2 rows of this, and that should do it. And put that down like that. So then that takes a very neutral envelope and just zhuzhes it up a bit. And then I'll find a card that has either purple or blue and write the address on there when I get to that point. And I could add, well, I'll put my return address here and then some sort of a wax seal or a sticker or something that coordinates. And I don't usually decorate the back too much. That could be something where the recipient could use the back to make tags if they wanted. It's a little mini masterboard for them to use. So I'm happy with that one for now. I can always add more when I'm sending it. If it's to someone particular who's working on a certain theme or something, I could add a dragonfly or a bee or a butterfly. But I think that's enough for now. I'll set that one off to the side. And let's do a pocket. So let's use this up while we've got it out here. Do that. Oh, wait a second. Here's a good piece. Now that's another one that's got that packing tape all over it. I think I can bring myself to use it with a bit of ink. Now this isn't going to be going in the mail. This is going to be just something that I include inside the envelope. So let's glue this down. It's got a little something sticking to it there. Tiniest little scrap that I do not need to save. So sometimes these outside corner pieces are good for pockets. It's not the only place you can use them, of course, but they are particularly good for starting your focal point on a piece. I'm going to leave it just a bit off of the edge. So we got our pink, green, and orange. So with the orange, because this is not going to be on the outside, I could use one of these little thick stickers. This is like a little cherub or angel sticker. And it's very old. It came from my mom's stash, so it's over 10 years old. So I'm just gonna use the 3-in-1 to put it down. And then when I was doing this corner and leaving it off the edge, my idea was that I would put some lace or something around it. And then this is getting tossed to the side for next time. Let's see what I've got on my lace drawer. Got some new crocheted stuff that I just picked up at the thrift. And then I've got, oh, this pink might be perfect. Yeah, I think that's going to be what I'll do. So up the side. And I think I'd like to just scrunch it up a bit. So with the 3-in-1 you can kind of do that because it dries pretty quick. And if you have one of these silicone tools, this one is a lip scrubber from the Dollarama, and it doesn't stick to the glues, and you can use it to push and hold just for a second and then kind of roll it off so that it doesn't pull it back up on you. Keeps your fingernails away from the 3-in-1 because it will take your polish right off. It's got acetone in it. And then down here, I'm using my little bit of rough edge that I had created, but I'm going to take this around the corner like this, and then continue to scrunch and hold, scrunch and hold. I have a larger one too that I could be using with the other hand. See, if you lift it before it gets a chance to set, it will pull up. I'm not trying to be super even. I'm just trying to be more random with my scrunches. I have quite a bit of this seam binding lace, and for the longest time I didn't use it. It felt a little thin and not too exciting, but when you do this with it, it suddenly has so much great texture. And then I'll just cut that off and give it one last scrunch here. Just another little dab of fresh glue and scrunch that in. So that's cute, and then it could still use something in the middle. Put this lace back. I can grab it again if I need it. Maybe one of these really pretty dimensional flowers, because again, it's harder to find places to use them because I've been doing a lot of decorating for mailing envelopes. I'm going to cut the rest of this wire off. I never need the wire anymore. And then this has been kind of crushed, which is fine. It'll get crushed if it gets put into a book too, into a journal. I like to ink the edges of these. Just changes it and gives it more dimension. See the difference? And a fair bit of glue. I'm going to nestle that right beside the angel. Almost in the middle, not quite. And that'll take a few seconds, but it won't be long to set up. And then because I've got so much pink down here, I want to line right here with pink as well so that you see pink through that. Let's see, what have I got that's a nice pink tone. In my stack, I've been starting to talk about my stack a little bit. So I use these meat trays that are clear, hard plastic, and they've replaced styrofoam trays in our area. So when I get my meat out of them, I clean them, and then I spray them down with my homemade Dawn Power Wash, which is mostly alcohol. And so then they're really clean. And so I don't have to worry about the meat aspect of it. And I just have a different type of collage paper in each one. And one of them is bits of colored paper. And different patterns and stuff. See if I've got the right tone of pink somewhere here. I do need to sort them a bit. Some of these ones with the colors and patterns need to be sorted a bit. I do have some of this, which is actually sticker, which would be good. So these are postage stamps that I get from Canada Post. So the stamps would be here. And then you get these little tiny seals with them that have more flowers on them. And then you can also fussy cut the big flower on the front. But I think I'm just going to use a piece of this because this is all sticker. And you know what? I could even use the writing. Why am I not using the writing? So I'm going to take, and even with the French part, no, I just need it to go in a little ways. So you can get the sticker started where the stamps used to be on the back side. Oh no, that's not the right, that's the sticker. This is plasticky. So I could just put this in there, but I was thinking of that writing would look neat. So I'm just going to stick this in here as close to the edge as I can, and it's just going to poke through there, that little bit of green and pink. I like the fact that it ended up with some green, because any floral just, it needs a little green. And then this one also wasn't decorated on the back. Now I think most people are going to glue this down, but because I'm going to send it in Happy Mail, I think I should finish off the back of it. So I will just grab whatever I've got here. There's some music. If I go into my stack, it's easy to find something, an offcut from something. Even just brown paper on the back, since it's not as likely to be seen. It's more likely going to be glued down. I just want my project to reach the recipient looking finished. I'm just switching to the tacky glue. I should have done this before I put all that bulk on the front. And there's just a little spot down in the corner here. So I'm just gonna take a little piece of this music paper. Actually, that was 3 layers. That's very thin paper. And just stick that there. So then that looks more finished on the back. So that's really cute. So that's 2 things sort of decorated up and ready to go. Sometimes when I don't know what to make and film, I just do this. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, what's the next thing I can play with here? Another envelope. So we're back to flat things. And I need a good focal point for it. So I've been wanting to use this little scenery. It's maybe a little brighter than I am in the mood for. That's what it really comes down to, is what I'm in the mood for. These little ones I tend to use to make my little faux postage stamps. Here's a nice one. Like books and glasses. I just got to find one that grabs me. Gardener's Journal by Engelbright. That's brighter, but a nice theme. Here's a nice one. This will blend in nicely with this. And then I can use some blues. I do like using blues. So when I get something like this, now I obviously just cut it out of the magazine. And I think it's a piece, I think it was ceramic tiles. You can see the lines. But what I like to do is use my ripple scissors around the edge. I mustn't have had them with me when I was doing this. They have escaped me a few times and I've not been able to find them. Even though I have 2 pair of them now. Could also use my tear ruler. On small things, I tend to use the scissors. So I do that to give it a rough edge. I might even ink the edge, even though it's magazine page. Whoops. I'll make sure I got the right dauber. So that's not going to show up very much. So I'm going to go to my, anything that has that craft paper color, I tend to use the ground espresso instead of the vintage photo. So give that a good press. Should be able to get around this with one. Yeah, that's much better. It's showing up. And then I'm going to look for some blue to put in behind this, and then that's going to kickstart us off on using the blues. The blue accents. So I have bigger containers behind me in my drawers that have blues in them. So there's this sort of delphinium blue. I don't know if that's maybe a little brighter than I want. There's a darker one. That's more what I was thinking. So what I'll do is I'll just glue this down onto the, this is magazine page too. Whenever there's a large blank piece with color, I collect those out of magazines as well. And I'll use the 3-in-1 because it won't wrinkle the paper. And it'll glue down really well because this is going to be on the outside of the envelope. And I need to change my glue page. And then I'll just glue it down to the corner somewhere. Usually then I will go around it again. I don't really care for the straight edge. So I'll go around it again. I sometimes might tear around them. Just depends on my mood. And so that creates a nice little focal point. And I've got this blank spot here. It was kind of intended for a place to write, you know, Junk Journal Junkies Canada or Thistledew Creations Happy Mail Swap or whatever the event is that I'm sending the Happy Mail for. But I kind of feel like this goes here, so I can always write that somewhere else. So I'm going to do that, and I don't know if this needs ink. It's not going to show up much, but oh yeah, it is showing up a little bit. It does give it a moodiness that I like. And this isn't really an even border. It's not straight. It's all good. It's fine. And you know, this would make, this particular magazine had fairly thick pages. This could be a pocket. But on the front of an envelope, of course, I'm not putting a pocket. So I'm going to move, that spot's getting sticky. So I'm going to move down to this corner. I don't know if you can still see it or not. I'm putting glue stick all over the back. And then I'll go in with my 3-in-1 again for strength of gluing and go fairly close to the edge because honestly, it doesn't even matter if the glue seeps out because it will be dry so fast. And I want to put this over to that side, the focal point of that little piece. And just give it a little rub down. It doesn't take long to grab. And then I think the sunflower kind of goes well with that, but I'll just ink it up with my vintage photo. Leaving it kind of black and white, but just adding some sort of sepia tone to it. And then I think I better leave the lid off of this for a minute. I don't like to leave it uncovered a lot. It's dried out and I don't use it that much, but I do want to go around and make that edge just a little darker than the rest. And you'll see that this circle is not, this sunflower is not cut out in a perfect circle. I used my ripple scissors and I didn't try to keep it perfect because I knew I wouldn't be able to. It's harder with the ripple scissors to make a perfect circle. Not impossible, but I do find it challenging. And I'm going I just have that overlapping a little bit. And then let's go back to our glove box and see what else will work with it here. That's too bright and pretty. I could do something like one of these with it and maybe ink it in blue. Could I do a blue owl? These are like a plasticky stencil sticker sort of thing that was at, I think, Dollar Tree for a while. They're gray and I don't like the grayness, so I've been going in and inking them, and then I like them better. Ink them with the vintage photo first, just to get rid of the grayness. And these might not be good to put on the outside, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think I want to add some blue. So I'm going to go into my ink drawer and find, I don't think I have a nice dark blue, but I do have carved jade. Oh, it's more teal. I might do it anyway. Let's do a feather with the teal. And I'm off on a tangent here, aren't I? But while I've got this out, let's just do this too. I'm not going to do the owl blue, but I'm happy with the way those are looking now. I'll be more likely to use them. So these are inks I got on Temu, and I just keep them together with an elastic so that they don't come apart and dry out. A friend of mine, Joyce Clark, was looking for them on Temu and couldn't find them, and I went on to link them for her and I couldn't find them either, so they must be sold out at the moment. So I'll keep checking back and I'll let you guys know when I see them again. And then this is just taking up more space than it needs to now, so I will trim. Sometimes I save these little acetate pages, but I'm just going to trim this down. And do I have a feathers spot? I don't. I have birds, but I'll just stick that back in the drawer there. I'll put this one with the birds. Now that it's inked brown, I might use it. So I know you can't see my drawers, but I've got a 12 drawer unit sitting in front of me here. Little tiny spice drawers. I call them spice drawers because I'm a kitchen designer. They're ephemera drawers. So that's 3 little elements there. Again, flat to the page, nothing sticking out because of the mailing idea. And then I feel like it still needs something over in these spots. So Catch Your Dream, I've got done in blue ink on fabric. And some more feathers, which certainly I could use the feathers again. Doesn't really fit well. Neither does that. I need a skinny one. Don't think I have a skinny one that's got blue ink. I'm not even sure that I'm crazy about this turquoise on there. Maybe I'll go back in with some brown ink. If I need a rich, dark navy blue ink. I guess I'm just going to have to break down and go to Michael's and see what they have. You can't trust what it says on Temu for the colors sometimes. What else have I got that's kind of got blues? Oh, I know what I could do is one of my postage stamps. I've got this wolf, the North Pole wolf sticker. That would go well on this page, maybe up here. Almost just looks like another stamp. Not sure if this is one that just peels off. For some reason, I thought it was. It doesn't seem to be, so I'll show you the tape trick and hope it works. 2 little pieces of Scotch tape, one on each side of the sticker you can't get apart. and pull, and it takes the back right off. I'm going to put it down in this corner, no, up in this corner. Change my mind. It almost just looks like another stamp. So I got it's bluish. There's just a little piece of paper. Doesn't really, the vibe isn't quite right on that. I can always add some bees. I mustn't have felt like putting those away. Put a little bee with that sunflower. The other thing that I always keep in here is the little strips of vellum that I don't want to throw away. As much as I like blue, I don't seem to have a lot of blue in here anyway. That's too pretty, too pastel. Well, here's a piece that I really like, and it's maybe a little light. It's a magazine image of some lace up against a blue background. So when you see those pictures that are too big to use, but you see pretty things in them, you can just cut out the pretty things and use them individually, like this. Ink the edges. I'm inking it with the darker color this time too. Surprising even myself. And here's where I would definitely want to use the glue stick first, and then the 3-in-1. And again, it's a bit too wide, so I'm going to just wrap it around to the back. I like that. And then I've got some vellum that is just like text on it. Vellum stickers, or just vellum. I think it's just vellum. So I'll just use I'll use the same method for that. The glue stick, because it doesn't show through, but it doesn't hold very well on vellum. So you really need the 3-in-1 to make it stick. It'll initially feel like it's stuck down, but eventually it does lets go. So I'm going to just sort of layer that up, overlapping onto the lace, and then go around to the back. And that one I left square edge, you noticed. You might have noticed. And there's another little bee, but it's green. I think I'll save it for a green situation. Just trying to put things away when I see that they should be somewhere else. Let me just see what I got for dragonflies in here. If there's anything with blue. Got silver, purple. This just is really blue and beige. This, oh, these ones are really pretty. Or here's one that's kind of a bluish green. Let's decide here. I could do something like this to kind of connect all of that. That would be nice. And then I could put one of these. I often cut these up. Put one of those up there, but that's where the stamps are going to go. So maybe more like over here. Dragonflies are one of my favorite things, and I find I keep forgetting to use them. Oh, here's a blue dragonfly. Use that one instead. It's more blue. But I do like these. These were just a printable that I printed a whole bunch of them. What have I got here? Ground espresso. That's my black one. I like to keep my black one separate because it really darkens down the other inks. if I use it by mistake. It makes them look grayish, which I don't care for. So this is just adding a touch of pink. Ink it so it's not so pastel. And I think I like that even up onto the window. And I don't know why, but I grabbed my tacky glue this time. Doesn't really matter as long as I get it well stuck down. The end of that dragonfly tail doesn't need to be there at all. I like the way that looks. Going up onto the window. And then this is another one of those stickers that's near impossible. You can sometimes pick at it with your pokey tool and get it, but I just find them very frustrating. So I found that the tapes trick works the best. And I've found even on the ones that are kind of like a papery feel on the front, it still works in most cases. Doesn't want to work this time. Now I've got my tape stuck to each other. Oh, this one's being stubborn. Leave yourself enough of a tab to hold on to. I've seen people say that they just glue them down rather than try to get the backs off, because they figure if the back is that hard to come off, it's not going to come off after a while either. That one's frustrating. Let me just try it with the pokey tool just so you can see what I mean. It might do the trick. If I can find my pokey tool. There it is. So I think this is the front. Yeah, it is. And so that's usually where I can get it started, because it's usually the thinner material. So you can get at the edge and just get it to wrinkle a bit. Then you can get it started. Still prefer the tape method, because this does kind of mangle one little section of the sticker. But that does get you started. I just think the people that make these must never use them to know that they're a pain in the butt. And then I always try to keep track of those backings and get them thrown away. Okay, so I think that one is decorated enough as well. Again, the back, I'll put my address, maybe I'll stamp or put another couple of stickers along the back, and then I leave the master board idea for the recipient to play with. Make sure there's nothing like this. So just another little dab of glue will get that dealt with. And I'll check it again before I mail it in case anything has come up. So that's 3 things decorated. Let's do this little pocket, double pocket. So this is fairly plain on the front. I think what I'm going to do first is stamp some music or something. Yeah, I've got my music stamp right close, but actually that's music. So I think I'll do script. I have both of these stamps that I picked up, I think, at thrift stores. Could have been in swaps. They might have been sent to me in a box swap, but I think I got them at thrift stores. I think I got these ones on our trip to St. Jacobs last summer. You can go back and look in my videos and see. But I just love these. They're so versatile. A nice size to do a background behind a collage or something. So this one just goes on about magic and friends and love and gratitude and all of those wonderful things. And I'll use my ground espresso ink on it, I think. And just decorate that plain coffee dyed paper. And I should put something down underneath to catch the rest, if there is any. Actually, I'm going to do sideways. And I'm just letting it overlap and overlap and overlap. Just gives it a little something. And I didn't get any on my sheet underneath. And I realize why it didn't print well is because it's too hard of a surface. I should have put something soft underneath it, like a couple of napkins or a piece of foam or something. But anyway, that decorates that up nicely. And then we just need a few little bits to decorate it. The ones up here need to be nice and flat so that you can still slide things into this pocket unencumbered. So let's do, what do I want to do? I wonder if that would work. Never give up. Just something, you know, generally decorative. And I might just tear around this. Fussy tear, as we say. It's hard to do tear such a small amount off. I'm losing the tips of some of the leaves, but that's all right. It's all good. Ink that. Once it's inked, suddenly that ragged, uneven tear is fine. Ink makes everything okay, I find. There, so that's given me greens, orange, teal, a pale red to work with. Nice color scheme. Not my usual, but nice nonetheless. And I'm going to tuck that in underneath and off to the side. And then I've got some stamping of feathers that will go well with that. So I'm going to, actually, I think I'll use my ripple scissors to cut one of those out. And ink it. And then maybe there. And because this is going to be inside the package, I can add like some buttons or something. So maybe what I'll do is glue this down. On this blank spot here. I really like this wraparound effect a lot. And this tea was pumpkin apple or apple and something. So I think I might use this label here too. It's got that certain shade of red in it that goes well here. And that could actually be another little pocket on front of the pocket, couldn't it? Maybe I will make it another little pocket. It's very durable paper. It's almost like a Oh yeah, it doesn't even want to cut. It's almost like a plasticky paper. I guess to keep the tea fresher. So I'm just cutting along where that scored it. It's not an easy thing to cut. And inking those crimped edges gives it really great texture. So then the fun job of making tiny ephemera to put inside there is presented to me, and I like that. So they use 3-in-1 to glue that down. It's more papery on the inside than the outside. And I'm not going to try to center it. I'm going to do it down in the corner. But what I was starting to do was think about a couple of buttons or something up here. So let's find those before I forget about them entirely. First I'll go to these buttons, which are prepped with string in them, most of them, a lot of them. So I've got a butterfly that's way too bright. Now, the other thing to remember is when something seems way too bright, sometimes you can tone it down. This one has some orange and some green. So you see, I just sat one night with my embroidery floss and put some floss through the buttons and tied it from the back. And that way, when you tie it from the back, put your little bow in the front. I think that's really cute, having that little bit of string hanging. And I'm going to ink this just to change the color a bit, make it warmer. Really cute. And then it still needs something here, maybe a bird. I've got birds here, a drawer of birds, and I've also got I've got another place to look for birds that even might be better. A lot of these ones have my usual pastel colors and bright colors. What I need is a little more earthy here. Oh, I could use my owl. I could use my owl if I added a little bit of orange to him, which I think I could do. I think I have a color called persimmon or something like that. Persimmon sauce. Yeah, persimmon sauce. And I'm just going right onto him with the ink pad. He's getting the ink layers built up on him. Let that dry for a second. You know, you won't be able to see him very well against that wood grain. See, dry. And then I want to go in with the ground espresso and do around the edges just to shade him a little bit. So if you haven't played much with coloring those gray stickers, I encourage you to play with that because this is working out pretty nice. I'm going to put that there. And his tail doesn't quite make the cut and it's not going to wrap around, so I'm going to cut it off. It's too small to wrap around, it won't stay. So I think that kind of balances. And then we've got a place in there, a place in here, and then behind, if you want to glue it down and leave some opening here or an opening here, or make it a complete belly band, or you can just clip it in because it is nice looking on the back too. You can just clip it into a journal. So that was fun. Let's see, a couple more left from yesterday's creating that we could decorate, and just to see whether we're done with this one. Again, because this is going inside, it could be bulked up a little bit more. Let's see if I can do one of these again. Keep forgetting to use these. Something purple. There's one. It's got like little, almost looks like little violets on it. I think hubby's wanting me to take a break. He keeps coming in and going back out when he hears me talking. He knows when I'm talking. I'm either on a phone call or I'm filming. And usually it's that I'm filming. I don't spend a lot of time on the phone. I'm just going to put that right there. And that one I kind of goofed because I put the knot at the back. So it's a little rocky because of the knot. So I always try to remember now to put them at the front. They're cuter when the knot's at the front. That's not grabbing. I think it will eventually. So I'd say that one's done. That's good. And then I think I'm going to leave these other ones for a separate video so that I can go see what hubby's up to. And I've been over an hour anyway. So we'll come back and do some more. This is probably going to be the extent of what I do today, is some more of this type of decorating and maybe some more bases for it. Some more neutrals. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Let me just spread out what I've done here so you can see all together. We've got 2 Happy Mail envelopes ready to go, and then 2 pockets and a double pocket. I've enjoyed that immensely this morning, so thanks for joining me. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. But most of all, have a great day and happy crafting.